Welcome to the Wealth Acceleration Podcast with your host, wealth coach Wade Reed.
Hey there, Money Masters. It's Wade Reed here again for another episode of the Wealth Acceleration Podcast. And today is something I want to share with you that really will accelerate your wealth. This is something highly practical, and it's this key question: do I need to own a business, or real estate for that matter, to become rich or wealthy? Do I need to own a business to become rich? The answer to that is clearly no. And there's research around this that points to the fact that you do not have to own businesses or real estate to be successful financially, to become rich, and have a very successful financial life. So let's get into this. Where does this data come from? I just so happen to have worked with a lot of small business owners. And it is true that small business owners tend to have higher incomes. But do you have to own a business? Let's look at some of the possibilities. The word job. Sometimes people say playfully that job stands for just over broke. And there's some truth to that if you let it just be a job. If you just go do a job simply to get a paycheck and you don't really care about who you're working for, you're just trying to make ends meet, that's probably what it is. And there's also this idea that having a job was something that you did before you started a business. So who came to the United States early on, before it even became America? It was immigrants from the European nations, largely England and a few others, of course, who were seeking adventure, who were seeking a new life, who were seeking freedom from oppression, who wanted to own their own land, who wanted to create their own path in life. That's something I think we're built for, is something that feels progressive to us, something that we can do that feels like it's our own, that it's our own path, it's something interesting and encouraging to us. However, over the past 400 plus years that we've been a nation, we've fallen out of sorts with that in a way. We've taken it for granted. In the United States, things are so stable and so wealthy. In fact, we can get a job just about anywhere that pays our bills plus extra, that we can have a decent lifestyle with, and we aren't nearly as emotionally driven for success like those who come here who are seeking a better way of life. Now, let's use Elon Musk, for example. I'm a bit of a fanboy. I've followed him since 2011 when I first came across his company, Tesla Motors at the time. They had taken a really cool car known as a Lotus, and they turned that frame of a car into an electric vehicle that became the first Tesla Roadster. And this was just a kind of a test to see if they could sell this car, make a battery that would have enough range that people would be interested in it. And then, of course, a few years later, the Tesla Model S came about, and then the Tesla Model 3, which Elon called production hell during the years that he was trying to get that car to full production. He was nearly bankrupt. At the same time, working on a company called SpaceX, trying to bring interplanetary travel into the realm of possibilities again, to have an exciting future. This is a man who came from South Africa. He is an immigrant to the United States who has relinquished his South African roots and become a citizen of the United States. Why? Because there's freedom here. We are not oppressed in the same way. We have freedom to start businesses and run businesses and do our own thing. So those of us who are employees, someone working for somebody else in somebody else's business, that business was started largely out of some ambition to do something good for society, to be a value creator. And that's what I want you to hang on to right here, is the term value creator. I want you to be a value creator. And I want to give you some evidence to suggest that you don't have to be the business owner to be wealthy. You don't have to own real estate to be wealthy or to become rich. You can do it following principles of success. So one of my mentors, Jim Rohn, he's passed away, but he was famous for talking about his experience at 20 to 25 years old, where he was broke, had pennies in his pocket, and was blaming society, was blaming the political landscape, was blaming the economy, was blaming high taxes for his problems. And then he had a mentor come into his life. And this mentor, who had had some success, taught him that it was his mindset that was his problem, not the economy, not the political environment. Nothing else external to him was the problem. It was him. And one of the principles that he was taught was that he needed to work harder on himself than he did on his job. Work harder on yourself than you do on your job. That's one of my favorite phrases I've ever picked up from him over the years. And I first came across him in around 2006. So we're going on 18 years plus that I've known about this guy, and he's been a mentor. Not physically, I never met him, but his books and his trainings have been an important mentorship for me. And one of the things he said is that in order, as you work harder on yourself than you do on your job, then you can't help but become more valuable to society. You can't help but become more valuable to your employer. And what happens when you're more valuable to an employer? Opportunity, responsibility, higher income opportunities. You might get recruited by another company to do the same skill set for somebody else. And I think it was the book Think and Grow Rich. I'm pretty sure it was that book by Napoleon Hill, one of the classics on the importance of the mindset around money. He tells a story, I believe it was Charles Schwab, who was hired possibly by Dale Carnegie. So excuse me if I get the details a little bit off. I want to get the point across, though. I believe it was Charles Schwab who was the first man in America to ever be paid $1 million a year. This was in the early 1900s. This was a very, very substantial income. I mean, it's still substantial today, very, very substantial today, but back then it was more like a $10 to $20 million a year income. Why was he paid that much? Because of his ability to inspire human action. He was a really good manager of people who knew how to motivate people to get work done that was important to the value creation necessary of the company that he worked for that brought value to the world. And I can't remember if it was the steel mills or if it was the railroad system or if it was the car manufacturing, but it was those big industries of the day that he was helping people be unified in their objectives and accomplish the outcomes that were desired by the company to add value to society. So value creation is the only way we ever actually make an income. We're not paid for the time that we spend somewhere. We're paid for the value that we deliver during the time that we spend working for somebody. This can be in self-employment. This can be working for somebody else. This can be in a business, whatever it is. It's really only ever paid for the value we create. So I want to share a study with you. A guy by the name of Shruly Blotnick. He was born in the early 1940s. He did some research in 1960 for 25 years. And this was summarized by a guy named Stephen Palmer. He's an acquaintance of mine. He was the co-writer of a book called Killing Sacred Cows, which was co-written with Garrett Gunderson. He's a very experienced, educated editor and writer. He's got a lot of background, done a ton of research. And so what he did is he took this book. I'm going to pull the title up for you. It's called Getting Rich Your Own Way. Again, Shruly, Srully Blotnick. Kind of a fun name to say, Shruly Blotnick. And in his summary, he says this. The book details a study that began in 1960 of 1,500 people representing a cross-section of middle-class America. Throughout, in fact, I'm going to share this on my screen. For those of you who are watching this, I'm going to share this visually. So if you want to go back and look at this with me, you can. We're going to share, here it is. All right, so what we have on the screen is this summary. Again, a millionaire study summary by Stephen Palmer. In the book, Getting Rich Your Own Way by Shruly Blotnick, it details a study that began in 1960 of 1,500 people representing a cross-section of middle-class America. Throughout the 20-year study, they lost almost a third of participants due to deaths, moves, or other factors. Of the 1,057 that remained, 83 had become millionaires. So just 83, a tiny percentage. When Mr. Blotnick interviewed participants at the beginning of the study, the most widely shared impression they found was that great wealth can come to you only as a result of doing things you don't want to do. That I thought was fascinating. The belief was that great wealth can come only by doing things you don't want to do. And how many of those in America are doing work they don't want to do just to get by? This is what Jim Rohn was talking about, what his experience was like from 20 to 25, that completely changed when he had a mentor in his life impress upon him the importance of being a value creator. Work harder on yourself than you do on your job. This comes back to a story from Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, where he tells about how his rich dad taught him to get a job to learn skills, not get a paycheck. The paycheck is secondary to the skills you develop in the work that you choose to do, especially early on in your career. Okay, continuing on. They also noted that from the start, most participants assumed that chance would play a decisive role in determining who became wealthy. Here's what they found. Of the 83 successful people, there were 5 shared characteristics. Number 1, they were persistent. Number 2, they were patient. Number 3, they were willing to handle both the, quote, nobler and pettier, end quote, aspects of their job. They had an increasingly non-competitive attitude towards the people with whom they worked. That's number 4. Increasingly non-competitive attitude towards the people with whom they worked. And number 5, their investment activities, aside from their main career, consumed a minimum of their time and attention. Their investment activities, aside from investing in themselves and their career development, consumed a very minimum of their time and attention. I have seen this personally. I have seen analysis on this in software that I use to measure this. Interest rate, earnings on investments have very little impact overall. If you're only saving 1% of your income and you try to get 8 to 10 to 12% earnings on your investments, whatever they are, you have such a small quantity that even high interest earnings have very little impact long term. But on the other hand, if you can focus on the things I've talked about in the past, like setting up a system, having this wealth capture / clearing account that allows for a capturing of your money to move you from 2 to 3% up to as much as 35% of your income over a couple of years. As you have increases to your income, it's automatically captured there. The mere fact that you save a higher volume of your money is what creates wealth. It's not the earning rate that creates the wealth, it's the savings rate. It's the volume of dollars that you actually set aside and save for your future. So this is perhaps my favorite of the 5. It debunks the myth that you have to make investments all the time, that you have to take significant risk in the stock market or in real estate ventures or whatever it is. Starting a business, you don't even have to do that. You don't have to do any of that. All you really have to do is manage your income versus expenses and keep more and more and more of what you're earning. The consensus, and I've done research on this, the consensus is generally between 15 and 20% of your income that you need to save. But if Americans are saving less than 5%, it's a very, very meager retirement life in the future. Look, we're humans, we get by, we figure things out, we're pretty resilient, but it's not that fun when you don't have much income. When you're in a room and you don't have a lot of air, I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where you're sleeping under the covers of a bed or in a sleeping bag where you're covered up and the air gets a little bit thin and you start to feel a little bit of suffocation. Claustrophobia sets in. The same type of thing happens with money when we don't have a lot. We start to get really uncomfortable. So I want you guys to just know you don't have to be a business owner. You don't have to be a real estate investor. You don't have to be an investor at all to be financially successful. What you do have to do is find something that you love. And this is what this summary finishes out with. Writes Blocknick, we originally expected the people in our sample to become wealthy by taking the money they earned at work and investing it wisely in such things as stocks, bonds, and real estate. We thought there'd be no way for them to become rich unless they used their surplus income to generate more income. It didn't work out that way. More often than not, they made little or no money investing. Now finish this up. In short, what the study unveiled was the main source of wealth for the successful participants was that they found something they loved to do and they did it well. Bingo! Guys, this is the key to success. Find something that you love and do it well. Find something you love and do it well. Don't just succumb to life's vicissitudes, to life's strenuous circumstances, to blaming the economy, to blaming our president, to blaming the political parties in power, to blaming the world for your problems, for your challenges, for your inability to create an income that's sufficient to set aside money and to pay all your bills and to get ahead. You are empowered to be successful in your life. You get to make that choice. You have 100% responsibility for your life. No one else will care more than you do ever. So choose well. Choose into a life you love. Envision it. Talk about it. Declare it into the future by speaking it out loud. Find people in your life to be mentors and accountability partners, and share, and then go for it. Unfortunately, there is this problem when it comes to this sort of ambition. And that is that when you're with a peer group and you're kind of in the same circumstances, everything's fine, everything's hunky-dory. But when you start to try to climb out of the proverbial bucket, so imagine the animal, a crab. When you put one crab in a bucket, it can reach up and get itself out. But when you put more than one crab in a bucket, they tend to grab each other and pull each other down. So you may find yourself one day finding some inspiration in a podcast like this and going, you know what, I'm going to change my life. I'm going to choose into a career that I actually love. I'm going to choose into skills that I love. I'm going to stop doing this career that I hate, and I'm going to choose doing something that I love. And you'll find people will pull you down. You can't do that. You're too old for that. You're too young for that. You don't have the skill. You don't have the money. You can't do that. And they will pull you down emotionally and physically and psychologically, trying to keep you with them because they don't want to see themselves outdone. So just be aware that is likely to happen as you try to progress your life. You may have to change your friend group. In fact, you will probably almost assuredly have to change your friend group. You may have to change the way you interact with family members who are really negative and pessimistic and pulling you down. And that can be hard emotionally to consider the possibility of changing your relationships because we love our friends. We've got good memories with people. I remember being told this when I was in my early college years, that the friends from high school that I had would probably not be the friends I had in college. And then again, the friends I made in college would probably not be the same friends I had as an adult. And I have found that to be absolutely true. We change peer groups as we change our skill set and our mindset. And as we do this, Blotnick says this, in case after case, they did increasingly well occupationally, while their pursuit of investment profits proved to be largely a waste of time. In the long run, it was their work which made them rich. So I want to speak to work for just a minute here. The word work sounds like work, and it is, but it's one of those things that gives us true purpose. When you've done something meaningful, when you've got a job well done, whether that's digging a hole in the backyard to put a post in, whether that's planting a garden, whether that's taking out an old tree like I've had to do recently. I've got a couple of old trees I had to dig out, and it was really strenuous work to pull out those roots and to dig around. It was hot and sweaty and dirty. But man, you finish a project and you feel accomplished. You feel excited. Work is perhaps the greatest gift God's given us, our ability to do work. It feeds our emotions. It feeds our physical strength and ability. It leads to positive mental thinking, and ultimately it leads to accomplishment that we can't get in any other way. Work matters. So if you're going to work your whole life, do work that you love, is my encouragement. Find work that you love. Get out of the old humdrum day-to-day old mindset and activities. Oftentimes we need a change of state, which often means a physical change in order to accomplish this. So turning off the screen share, back to just this me talking here, guys. I care deeply about your success. I'm perhaps one of the few that really does care deeply about the success. Not just sharing information, but practically bringing you tools and facts that you can count on that allows you to take a positive step forward. Now, if you choose into a business, great, but you don't have to. It does tend that way, that when we become value creators, we might want to go out and do things on our own. Not everyone is successful that way. Many people, in fact, start businesses and they fail because they don't have the skill. So if you're going to go start a business, make sure during the period of time before you do that, you study the business that you're in. Talk to your manager about how they become a good manager. Talk to your company founder, if possible, about what motivated them to do what they do and what trainings they've taken and who they've had as mentors in their life. Start to read books about the topics. Go to trainings and seminars. Seek mentors in the area that you're looking for guidance in. Start small. Do something that you can do as a side hustle and learn the skills of bookkeeping and marketing and customer service fulfillment and communication and all that goes into actually having a successful business. But you don't have to in order to be rich and successful financially. All right, guys, thanks for listening. Thanks for being here. I hope this is inspiring and helpful. If it is, please share it with your friends and family. Please go into my Instagram and social media feeds and share your thoughts and comments. Like and post and share. And please go do those reviews. If you have found value in this, go do a review on iTunes. If you go to my podcast page, moneymasterycoaching.com/podcast, there's a little tutorial on how to do that. If you don't know how you typically need to be signed in to your iTunes account to be able to make the review, and that helps more people know about this podcast and get more value, and you'll have more people in your circle sharing these uplifting and edifying and practical knowledge nuggets that come out of these podcasts. So again, appreciate you listening. Thanks for being here. Hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks for tuning in to the Wealth Acceleration Podcast. We hope the insights from today's episode help you streamline your finances and grow your wealth stress-free. For show notes from today's episode and more tips on creating a comprehensive wealth-building plan, visit moneymasterycoaching.com. Remember, financial freedom is attainable. Until next time, keep accelerating towards your goals. See you on the next episode.